It is 7 in the morning. You are running on not enough sleep, there is a diaper on the floor, and the baby is hungry. You reach for the pouch in the cabinet, the one with the friendly lettering, the fruit on the front, the brand you have trusted for years. You twist off the cap, hand it over, and for 30 seconds, breakfast is handled. That pouch is in 60 million American homes. It is the format that replaced the glass jar because it is lighter, unbreakable, and easier for a baby's hands to hold. It is marketed as modern and safe. It is the baseline assumption in almost every pediatric feeding conversation. It is what most parents, including careful, health-conscious ones, reach for without a second thought. This video is about what that pouch does between the factory and your baby's mouth. And I want to be clear, before we go any further, that I am not here to alarm you. I am here to show you something specific that was measured, explain exactly what it means, and give you a concrete alternative that costs the same and takes 30 seconds to switch to. The alarm is not the point. The information is. In May of 2026, a study commissioned by Greenpeace International and conducted by SINTEF Ocean, a Norwegian research institute, tested 2 of the most widely sold baby food pouches in the United States. Nestlé's Gerber yogurt puree, Danone's Happy Baby Organics fruit puree. They found microplastic particles in every single sample tested. Not some, every one. In the Gerber pouches, researchers found up to 54 microplastic particles per gram of food. In the Happy Baby Organics pouches, up to 99 particles per gram. Per gram. Translate that to something you can picture. Up to 270 microplastic particles per teaspoon of Gerber yogurt puree. Up to 495 particles per teaspoon of Happy Baby Organics fruit puree. Your baby does not eat 1 teaspoon. A typical pouch holds around 90 grams of food. Do the math, and you arrive at a number that stops most parents mid-sentence when they hear it for the first time. The study also identified plastic-associated chemicals in both the packaging and the food itself, including a compound classified as a known endocrine disruptor in the Gerber samples. I want to explain why infant exposure specifically is treated as a higher concern category in environmental health research, because this is not just about scale, it is about biology. Infants and toddlers eat more food relative to their body weight than adults do. Their organs, including the liver, kidneys, and immune system, are still developing, which means their capacity to clear contaminants differs from a mature system. The blood-brain barrier, a critical filter that protects the developing brain from substances in the bloodstream, is not fully formed at birth. And critically, whatever accumulates in the body during infancy does not reset. PFAS, for example, the forever chemicals we have covered in the cookware episode, bioaccumulate over a lifetime. Exposure in the first months of life is not a contained event, it is the beginning of a cumulative picture. This is why Dr. Leo Tresande, Director of Environmental Pediatrics at NYU Langone Health, responded to this specific study with the following. He described seeing firsthand how plastic chemicals harm children, contributing to rising rates of obesity, reproductive disorders, and neurodevelopmental conditions that can impact them for a lifetime. He was not speculating. He was describing the current state of clinical evidence in the field he directs. Here's the question most parents ask at this point, and it is the right one. If this is measurable and documented, why is this pouch still on the shelf at every grocery store in America? The honest answer has 2 parts. The first is regulatory. There is currently no federal requirement in the United States for food manufacturers to test their products for microplastic content, report the results, or meet any limit. The FDA announced after Consumer Reports' PFAS in baby formula findings in early 2025 that it would strengthen oversight, but those changes have focused on heavy metals. And as of this recording, no specific microplastic testing mandate exists for baby food products. The second is structural. The plastic squeeze pouch format has been one of the fastest-growing packaging categories in global food production. It accounts for 37% of the baby food packaging market by volume as of 2025. It grows at 8% annually. It is lighter than glass, cheaper to ship, and produces less breakage in the supply chain. The business case for the pouch is overwhelming, which creates a specific kind of inertia, the kind where a product stays dominant not because someone decided it is safe, but because no one has been required to prove that it is not. Greenpeace contacted both Nestlé and Danone with their findings before publication. Neither company committed to independent microplastic testing or to publishing results. The SINTEF Ocean study was methodologically specific in a way that matters. They did not heat the pouches, they did not stress test them. They tested the products as sold, the food inside a pouch sitting at room temperature on a shelf, the exact condition in which millions of parents serve this food every day. The microplastics found were traced, in part, to the polyethylene lining inside the pouch itself, the thin plastic layer that contacts the food directly. Polyethylene is the same polymer we covered in the cutting board episode, a material whose degradation under mechanical stress is documented. In the pouch, the mechanism is different. It is not abrasion from a blade. It is physical contact between the packaging material and the food over time, a process that does not require heat or external pressure to produce measurable particle release. The study also identified plastic-associated chemicals, separate from the microplastic particles themselves, in both the packaging and the food. These are chemical compounds that migrate from the plastic into the contents, a process that has been studied in food contact materials for decades and is distinct from the physical particle shedding. The endocrine-disrupting compound identified in the Gerber samples belongs to this category. Its presence means the concern here is not only physical particles, but also chemical migration, two separate mechanisms operating simultaneously in the same package. Here is where the story shifts, and this is the part most coverage of this study missed entirely. Greenpeace tested two brands. But the mechanism they identified, polyethylene lining in contact with food over time, is not a Gerber problem or a happy baby problem. It is a pouch problem. Flexible multilayer pouches, the format that dominates the baby food market globally, are almost universally constructed with a plastic inner lining that contacts the food. This is not a manufacturing defect. It is a structural feature of the packaging category itself. Switching from Gerber to a different pouch brand does not change the lining material. It changes the label. This is the same pattern we identified in the cookware episode with PFOA-free labeling, a brand-level switch that feels like a solution but does not address the mechanism. The mechanism here is the multi-layer plastic pouch format. No brand operating within that format is likely to produce a fundamentally different result under similar testing conditions, because they are all working with the same basic material in contact with the same basic food. I want to sit with this for one moment, because I think parents deserve a direct statement rather than a hedged one. The scientific evidence as it stands, the particle counts from the SINTEF Ocean study, the chemical migration data, the body weight exposure modeling from prior research we have covered in the series, the bioaccumulation evidence for PFAS compounds in infant and toddler populations taken together, points toward a specific conclusion. The most common, most convenient, most widely trusted format for feeding babies on the go is also the format with the most documented mechanism for introducing contaminants into that food. The long-term health consequence at these specific exposure levels has not been established with certainty. I am not going to claim it has. What I'm going to say is that the precautionary case here is as strong as anything in this series, because the population being exposed is the one with the least capacity to manage that exposure, the fastest developmental trajectory, and no ability to make an informed choice about it. If there was ever a place to apply the precautionary principle in your kitchen, this is it. The switch is simple and it costs nothing extra. Glass baby food jars, the format the squeeze pouch largely replaced, contain no plastic lining in contact with food. The glass does not degrade under the conditions of food storage. It does not release particles. It does not migrate chemical compounds into the contents. It is recyclable and has a documented safety record that the flexible plastic pouch format simply does not yet have. This is not a boutique or expensive alternative. Gerber itself manufactures its products in glass jar format alongside the pouch format. The same fruit purees and yogurt blends available in the pouch are available in the jar. The switch does not require a new brand, a specialty store, or a significant cost difference. It requires putting the jar in the cart instead of the pouch. For parents who use pouches specifically because infants and toddlers can self-feed from them, there is a reusable pouch option worth knowing about. Stainless steel or silicone reusable pouches filled from a glass jar or directly from prepared food replicate the self-feeding function without the multi-layer polyethylene lining. They cost more upfront and require washing, but they remove the contamination mechanism that the SINTEF Ocean study measured. For formula-fed infants, the Consumer Reports testing from early 2025 found PFAS compounds in almost all of the 41 baby formula brands tested, including well-known names. The contamination pathway there is different, primarily through water used in formula manufacturing and packaging contact, not through the same pouch mechanism. But the layered picture it creates, microplastics in pouched food and PFAS in formula, suggests that reducing plastic contact at every preparation step is the coherent response rather than addressing one product category in isolation. Here is the detail that should stay with you after this video is over, because it tells you something about the current state of corporate accountability on this issue. Greenpeace contacted both Nestlé and Danone with the study findings before they were made public. They asked both companies to commit to two specific actions. First, test every product for microplastics. Second, publish the results. Neither company did so. Neither committed to independent testing. Neither committed to transparency on this specific contamination question for products marketed specifically to infants. That is not evidence of guilt. Companies receive advocacy requests constantly and do not act on all of them. But it is a data point about where the current accountability structure sits. In the absence of regulatory requirements and voluntary corporate transparency, the information that exists comes primarily from independent researchers and investigative bodies, which is exactly why this study matters and why you are hearing about it here rather than on the packaging of the pouch itself. It is 7 in the morning again. You are still running on not enough sleep. The baby is still hungry. The jar is in your cabinet now, not the pouch. You twist off the metal lid instead of a plastic cap, spoon it into a bowl, and hand it over. Breakfast still takes 30 seconds. The food is the same. The calories are the same. The nutrients are the same. The only thing that changed is what is not in the bowl alongside the food. That is what most of the science on this channel is actually about. Not throwing out your kitchen, not living in fear of your own pantry, but making the specific swaps that the current evidence suggests are worth making, while the regulatory systems that should require manufacturers to make them are still catching up. You now know about one more swap, one more place where the choice is available to you today without waiting for anyone's permission. If you want the next one, subscribing is how you get it. I will see you in the next